Shalom Aleichem. My name is Tony Pino, and today we're continuing in our series concerning the overview of the book of Acts. Today we are going to be doing chapter 9. And as usual, we are trying to keep everything in its historical setting, context, and language. We want to be true to the author's intent. And by doing that, we need to understand what the author was trying to convey to that audience in that culture. Amen. And then once we find these biblical truths, then the truths can transcend time into any generation because they are Yahweh's truth. And so the truth of Yeshua, the truth of Yahweh are for all generations. Amen. So let's go ahead now and jump into Acts chapter 9. All right, so here we are in Acts chapter 9. We have Shaul is his name in Hebrew. They say Saul, and then in Greek it is Paul. Right, because he has dual citizenship. He has a Greek name and a Hebrew name. And we see that he is still after the people of Yeshua. And as a matter of fact, he's going to the Kohen Gadol, the high priest, and getting letters and requests in order to now go to Damascus, because he now has pushed many of them out of Jerusalem, out of Yehuda or Judea, and into Samaria. And then, of course, Damascus is farther north of Israel. It's in modern day Syria, if we were to look at a map today. And so he is heading that way to persecute what is now called the Way. That's what they're calling believers in Yeshua. They are called the Way. And so he wants to bring them back to Jerusalem. Now, the charges of which he is trying to get them for is not about disobeying the law of Moshe, because that's something Yeshua never taught. He never taught you to disobey the law of Moshe. What Shaul is having problems with is he believes that Yeshua is not the true Messiah because he hasn't fulfilled all of the passages that the Messiah is supposed to fulfill. And he is not physically on the earth right now. All right. And so to a lot of Jewish people, he's not the true Messiah. All right. Not understanding the sovereign will of Yahweh, that he comes in two comings. All right. So the first one was to deal with sin. The second one is to bring everlasting peace and everlasting reign on the earth. So, but Shaul is just going off of what he knows about the Tanakh, the Torah. Now, the other thing is Saul, being of the Parashim in Hebrew, that is said in English as Pharisee, and of that sect, they are steeped in what is called oral law or halakha in Hebrew. And so they have conflated their oral law to be on equal grounds with the law of Moshe. And so this is also causing problems within the people of the Way, because Yeshua didn't always obey the oral law. Within the conflating of the oral law, some of those traditions of men violated and nullified the words of God. And that's what Yeshua told them. So Shaul falls into the classification of certain Pharisees who Yeshua said, you don't even believe in the words of Moses. Because if you believed in the words of Moses, you would believe me because he spoke of me. And you find that in John, Yochanan chapter 5, verses like 44, 45, right around there. And then he also says in Yochanan, John chapter 7, to many of the Parashim, the Pharisees, chapter 7, verse 19, that you don't even do the law of Moses. Well, what were they doing? They were doing oral law. And so when a Pharisee or a Parashim says for us to follow the laws of Moses, he means to include his oral law on top of it. All right, that's just the way the language spoke back then. The law of Moses to a Pharisee included oral law because the Parashim were the leaders. They were the legal system of the day along with the priesthood. And so that's why you're seeing this power structure that Shaul is trying to protect. Okay, he's trying to protect the oral traditions. He's trying to protect the oral law and the court system of that day. And it's not the law of Moses that is under attack. It's the oral traditions. It's the oral ways. Okay, and that's what the people of the Way are not doing. And so they are falling into a couple categories here of following a Messiah who many people believe isn't the true Messiah because he didn't fulfill all of the requirements, and they are not following the ways of the Parashim, their oral law, halakha. They are following the law of Moses, though. So they can't be charged with not following the law of Moshe. Okay. Now, Shaul, Paul, he heads to Damascus, and on his way, he has an encounter with Yeshua. Yeshua says, "Why are you persecuting me?" I mean, Yeshua knocks him to the ground, blinds him, and Shaul, through this process of talking with Yeshua, recognizes this is now the true Messiah. He is the true Messiah. He calls him, "Who are you, Lord?" is what he says. Okay. He knows this is something magnificent. This is something powerful. And he calls him Lord, Kyrios, okay, in the Greek. And so he is given instructions to go and wait. And we have a disciple of Yeshua named Ananias in Damascus there. He is going to come to him. Paul is going to fast and pray until he comes. All right. And of course, Ananias was given a vision because he needs this vision in order to even go to him because he's afraid of Paul, all right, with the reputation that Paul has. But he is convinced to go. He heals Paul. The scales fall from his eyes. And not only did they fall spiritually, but they fell physically. So, physically and spiritually, the scales drop from Paul's eyes. He now recognizes Yeshua as the true Messiah. All right. And what a person to pick. I mean, the biggest battle you're going to have when it comes to Jews and Gentiles coming into the kingdom is not so much whether you're going to follow the law of Moses. That's a given. That is the laws of Yahweh, okay? And that teaches you how to love him and love your neighbor. It's going to be the combat and battle is going to be, what do we do with these oral traditions, these oral laws? All right. And some of them violate the words of Moses. So that's going to be the big battle. This is why Paul is picked, so that when he goes to the Gentiles and he goes to the Jews, he can rightly divide the word of truth to them. Amen. And so this is even better than what a lot of the disciples can do because he was steeped in that sect. So he can show you where the truth is of who Messiah Yeshua is in the Tanakh, in the Old Testament. And he can show you the division when the certain traditions of men violate the law of Moses. So he's going to be a powerful advocate for the kingdom here as he begins to advance the kingdom around the world. Now, as he tries to do this, of course, everyone only knows him as Shaul, Paul the persecutor. So they are very afraid. They are concerned. They don't know what to do with this guy. Is he just trying to trick us and then he's going to arrest us? All right. They just don't know. And then, of course, the other ones who now see that he's turned to the other side become very angry and want to kill him. So the disciples end up having to protect him. They end up having to lower him over the wall so he can escape. He heads back to Jerusalem in order to present himself to more of the disciples there. All right, they are leery, but they accept him through the witness of Barnabas, who witnesses to them the change in Shaul. But of course, this is not going to become a safe place for Shaul either. He is going to have to flee. But in this time, he is trying to preach the message, learning how to present it to people. Amen. And again, there's so much that he can give because of his understanding of oral law versus the law of Moses. And so he is able to blend this together in harmony so that Jews and Gentiles can come together. We're going to see that here in the future. All right. But the mission of spreading the gospel is underway. And now the biggest advocate, or I guess the biggest opposer of it, is now an advocate for it. So Shaul is on the side of the disciples now. Now we move on here in verse 32. We are seeing Peter. Peter is going to go down into Lydia here. He is going to perform some miracles, healing a paralyzed person. All right. He's then going to go to Jaffa, where he's going to raise somebody from the dead. He is going to heal people. And of course, continue to spread the gospel message. Amen. And so, by the gospel message of Yeshua being the Messiah and showing the power of the Ruach HaKodesh, this is very convincing to who? To the Jewish people out there who are waiting for the Messiah. All right. Peter knows, okay, who is also called Shimon in Hebrew, Simon in Hebrew. Peter is his Greek name. All right. They all have these two different names, Greek and Hebrew. Okay. Now, he's going to continue to minister to Jews because he can show them in the Tanakh, in the Old Testament, the fulfillment of what Yeshua did. There is no new covenant scriptures right now. All you have is the Tanakh, the Old Testament, to teach them. This is extremely important. If you cannot do the gospel with just the Tanakh, then you will not be able to interpret the new covenant scriptures correctly. Okay, because the Tanakh is the foundation. So we see here in verse 42 that it became known throughout Joppa, and many came to believe in the Lord. So it happened that Peter stayed in Joppa for several days with Simon a tanner. So the message is being highly accepted. Thousands of Jews are still coming into the kingdom through the gospel message that he is a Jewish Messiah who follows the Torah. Amen. All right, so this ends chapter 9 of the book of Acts as an overview. I hope you'll be able to dig into this much deeper. So until we meet again, everyone, shalom.